Good evening and welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio and our Shabbat program. It is in the midst of the celebration of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim because these three individual feasts on three successive days are celebrated over a 7-day period that we are brought to you today. So I would say we are powered by Matzah on this day. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Thank you.
Good. The difficulty of this particular year is it is a bittersweet celebration of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, because as we are celebrating the invitations, attending the invitations that Yahowah invited us to attend, the celebration overlaps what I would dare say, in fact, without equivocation, I would say, is the single most repulsive holiday ever conceived by man, and that is Easter Sunday. And the reason that Easter Sunday is such a perverted, perverse, despicable, disgusting, abhorrent holiday is that it was specifically designed to guile people into ignoring Yahweh's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and the means to not only eternal life and perfection and adoption into his family, but to lure them into celebrating something that was purely Babylonian and wholly satanic, even named after Ishtar, who was Astarte, the Queen of Heaven, and the Mother of God. It is the preeminent celebration in the religion that Yahweh calls the plague of death. I am certain that there is no day on man's calendar that Yahweh despises more than Easter Sunday. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
I would completely agree.
And they skip the one in between, so it's just, they go from horror to more horrible. How much more sun God worship can you do?
I've said some things that in the past month that have irritated some people, like when we had an individual that wrote and not only demeaned the Torah and tried to change Yahweh's plan as if his plan was better than God's. I said, I don't want that person part of the covenant. Now, the fact is, if they, I've said before, if they join the covenant, that's up to them. I do not own the keys to heaven. I'm not in that. I was not given that authority. And the fact is that if such person becomes part of the covenant family, such person will no longer be such person. They will be like our new brother, Danny, Danny, who was a fairly bad person as it comes to his time in Babylon. But he's no longer that individual. In fact, if you read the letters that he has written to other people since he has been cut into the covenant, you can see that old guy no longer exists. And so a person whose behavior we would have found reprehensible and a person who we would not have wanted him to drag any of that into God's family, and God would not have allowed it, is now as part of the covenant as a completely new individual. Now, I've also came across as a person that's been communicating a lot with the covenant that said that he was part of the covenant and then decided because his wife was trying to encourage his son or daughter, I don't know which one it was, to eat, Easter loaves of bread that his son was therefore, or daughter was going to die, and therefore he was going to eat the loaves too, because if his son was or daughter was going to die, he was going to die too. And you just say, oh, come on. You made every attempt to explain. No, that's... let me just ask you. Kirk, did you eat yeasted bread during Pesach prior to being part of the covenant?
All my life.
Yeah.
Until then.
JB, you didn't celebrate it as part of Easter, but did you eat yeasted bread during the week of Pesach? And I did too, by the way.
Oh, and I've even done it a few times since I've become part of the covenant. Just
inadvertently,
my mind, and I grab it. Yeah, me and Joe are halfway through a sandwich, going, "Oh, dang!
Oops! Yeah, I've done it too. Yeah, I've done it too. Yeah, because two things are paramount. We to this individual that in fact, wrote the instruction in the imperfect, saying that if you continue to do this, you'll be separated from the family. But at the moment we stopped doing it and accepted the terms and conditions of the covenant, the fact that we had done it previously was irrelevant. I mean, absolutely irrelevant. And that still, it didn't resonate. And so what I said is, let them go. Don't chase after this individual. It's their choice. We're not here to hawk the covenant. We can't even offer the covenant. We can present it as Yahweh presents it. If somebody chooses to be part of it, and comply with its instructions, that's their business. That's their choice.
Yeah, I would say with this individual, at the very least, they've done a lot more than most individuals have. Most individuals, don't make the choice. They're ignorant. And they choose to remain. He informed himself, came to know, and decided, you know what? I understand this, I know this, and I don't like it. I don't want to do this.
Right.
That's your call. God's fine with that.
Right.
God is not going to burn this guy in hell for making that choice.
That is correct. And I've had two people,
when you get on an airplane,
15 years, that have made that decision. And both for the same reason, by the way. Two people amongst thousands who made the same decision for the same reason. So what I just said is, let them go. And I'm sure that's going to irritate some people. Now I'm going to say something I hear that may irritate others. I am not only going to want this person, whose name is Scott, K. Scott Oliphant, to spend his eternity in hell. I'm going to applaud it. Now, that might irritate some people. That's not very nice, Well, I'm going to share with you what K. Scott Oliphant wrote. And then maybe you'll understand why I will applaud their conviction to an eternity in hell. And you can decide whether or not maybe I'm just really lost it. I'm just way too harsh these days. I found this, and by the way, I would include some of the publishers and editors of a tool that I use regularly in that conviction.
Yeah, I almost know what you're going to say. And why?
I use Logos. Yeah, I use Logos regularly. And when I opened my Logos today, because I was still working on this, my translation of the basis for our show today, this is what I read. It says, "What the mystery means that which cannot be known, that which is made up, that which is usually associated with religion, of the incarnation, capital I, that means God becomes man, teaches us about Easter." Isn't that astounding? That you could still you could be so ignorant, so irrational, so immoral, that after it is absolutely obvious that there is no Easter in the Torah, prophets, or Psalms, and not even any Easter in the pagan and corrupt Christian New Testament, that you would write about Easter. I mean, Easter in its totality is Babylonian. It's Babel.
Yeah.
It was conceived in Babylon when the Mother of God and Queen of Heaven took both of those titles, because when her husband, the king, the son, Nimrod, was killed by a wild boar, therefore the Easter ham, she claimed that the son, which was the Lord God, impregnated her on the vernal equinox, so that 9 months thereafter she could give birth to the son of the Son, therefore the Son of God. Her name was Astarte. Yahweh has a lot to say about the Queen of Heaven and the Mother of God, which has been adopted into Christianity as Mary, the Queen of Heaven, Mother of God. And it's all bad. And the Easter is not only named after her, it's timed for her. And all of the rituals associated with it, including bunnies that lay eggs, colorful eggs that are hunted, the death and resurrection of life myth, the Son of the Son, therefore the Son of God, every aspect of it is a direct copy of the Babylonian lore. And when Yahweh uses a term to describe Satan's influence on humanity, even in his last witness to us, doesn't he speak of the whore of Babylon?
Come out of her.
Right. Come out of her, my people. Who do they think her is, if her isn't the Queen of Heaven and Mother of God, the basis of Easter?
Very good question. Who do
How
they think?
stupid would you have to be not to figure this out? How stupid you have to be to not figure out that when he's talking about this whore of Babylon, that he specifically identifies the whore of Babylon with Rome, and therefore Roman Catholicism, those who invented Easter. Did Yosha say, hey, disciples, I am really looking forward to celebrating Easter with you? King James claims so.
Yeah. Well, I was even only in one edition, and they corrected that.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, they really?
Even they went, okay, we made this one up. You caught us.
Yeah. All right, so this is what it says. It's full of profound truths that defy human understanding. Now, how could it
full of
be
things that defy human
profound or
understanding,
true that
that's
defies
for sure.
Just explain that to me. How could it be profound or truth if it defies understanding? For it to be true, don't you have to understand it?
That's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
That is an oxymoron. Welcome to the nature of Christianity. These grand mysteries, truth is a mystery, point us to God's greatness and goodness. So God, the story of God is so mysterious that it defies understanding. And the fact that it defies understanding points out God's greatness and goodness.
How so?
You can't argue with that.
I mean, literally, you can't. It makes no sense.
Right. All you can do is laugh. And when contemplated, evoke awe and worship. This is so stupid. I can't understand it, but it causes me
to bow
to be
down.
awestruck and want to worship.
I was going to say, it does cause me to be awestruck. It is so stupid, I am awestruck by its stupidity. I ain't bowing down to worship because of it, but I am awestruck by it.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though, worshiping a God who created humankind to worship him? Can you imagine worshiping a God that wants to be worshipped by his creation? I mean, how pathetic would that God be? It's just for the love of me, I cannot understand the mentality of the religious God and people's view of the religious God. A God who would create a being to worship him is not worth knowing. Such a being would be inadequate and pathetic. That's why God never asks us to worship him. That's why Yahweh presents himself as Father, and a father-child relationship known as the covenant. That's why he never associates the title Lord with himself. He does not want to be worshipped. He is not pathetic. The Christian God, the Islamic God, is Satan. Absolutely inadequate and pathetic. This person next says, at the center of our celebration of Easter, if you're celebrating Easter, there's only two options for your soul. Either it's going to die and be annihilated, or if you are like Lagos here or K. Scott Oliphant, your soul is going to become immortal and spend eternity in Sheol, known to Christians as hell.
Mortal death.
Yes. At the center of our celebration of Easter, does God have anything to do with Easter, or is Easter wholly and completely part of the mythos of the whore of Babylon?
Well, he does talk about it. He condemns it quite a lot.
Yeah, just like he condemns Christmas.
Yeah.
Are two of these mysteries Jesus's Now, Jesus, even using the name in as if it's God, is an unforgivable sin. Using the name Jesus as if it referred to God is an unforgivable sin. Now, Kirk, you and I talked about this earlier today. JB, why would you think that using Jesus as the name of God is an unforgivable sin?
Well, you couldn't diminish him or twist his name or twist his word any worse than that. It just loses every meaning that he's trying to say. Yahowah saves. How do you get that out of Jesus? You just twist it.
Jesus at best is made up, and at worst is based on a pagan god. So it'd be the same as attributing God's work to Satan.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, Jesus is the savior of the Druid religion, where the horned one is God. Yeah.
That's scary.
The issue is,
it's funny. I had an argument not too long ago with a Christian, and they were talking about, how the name isn't all that important. And so I just because it's on top of my head from something I had done previously, I grabbed just their King James Bible, and I opened it up right to where, if you read in any King James Bible, it'll tell you, there is no other name under heaven by which we are to be saved.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so if his name's not Jesus, and there's no other name, doesn't that mean the name's pretty important? They didn't have an answer to that one.
Why would Yahweh introduce himself by name in the first statement he etched in stone and tell us in that first statement that I am your liberator and you will not exist with any other God in my presence? Why would he then say in the third statement he etched in stone that if you promote the name or the diminishment of my name, the negation of my name, Yahweh, that is unforgivable? By changing Yahusha, which means Yahweh saves, to Jesus, you are negating Yahweh's name. It is unforgivable. I mean, it's either unforgivable or God is not reliable and God's an absolute liar, which means that nothing is forgivable. Those are your choices. Either nothing is forgivable because God is an outright liar and cannot be trusted, because that's the third statement he etched in stone, the negation of my name is unforgivable, or to use Jesus, to promote Jesus, to write Jesus as if you're referring to God is an unforgivable sin.
How do you deal with also, he came in my Father's name?
Yeah.
They have no concept of why he was called
there ain't a single letter
in
similar between those two names, Yahweh and Jesus. Not a single letter.
Not a single letter. Even the S is not similar, because the S in Yosha is not an S, it's the SH, it's the Shin.
SH, yeah.
Yeah, not the Shematic.
It's the I and the tooth, if you really want to get down to what it is.
Right, yeah, it's the
I for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Right. Easter are these two mysteries. Jesus' incarnation, which is that God is born as a child. So all of God fits into that little baby. So Jesus' incarnation and his resurrection, which is now this celebration of the Christian Easter, where the body of Jesus, which had to be destroyed the evening of Passover, according to the Torah, otherwise he wasn't the perfect Passover lamb. God was lying when he says that is the fate of the remains of the Passover lamb. That rather than becoming light again, as all the prophecies discuss, rather than being recognizable, as all of the eyewitnesses indicate that he was not, he was counterproductive. He came back as a physical body, according to them, yet not recognizable by anyone, able to teleport, able to walk through walls.
But it was the same body still.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't recognize it, but it was the same body.
Totally incomprehensible, totally inconsistent with the evidence, totally inconsistent with the Torah, which he claimed to be the living embodiment of, and totally counterproductive, because it's our flesh, it's our material nature that is flawed and disintegrating.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's just what they would have you believe. In this excerpt from The Majesty of Mystery The Majesty of Mystery. K. Scott Oliphant examines the relationship between these two mysteries to remind us of the glory and wonder of our God. When we speak of two natures in Christ, by the way, was there a person named Christ?
No, sir.
Nope. Is Christ
Christ means?
Was anybody named Christ?
Nobody calls himself that.
No. In fact, the Greek word that underlies the transliteration, Christ, it's Christos. What does Christos mean?
It means to be drugged or to apply drugs.
That is correct. It does. It means to be drugged. So when we speak of the two natures of to be drugged, we are not to think of the natures as equal partners that come together.
Well, you should just stop there. We are not to think. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, that would be fun.
This is very funny. I mean, this is
instead, I know. It's perfect to read as we approach Easter. But we have to make an important distinction. In other words, Christ, as the Son of God, has always been and cannot but be fully God. You hear that? Has always been but cannot be fully God.
So how come the universe didn't blow up?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead.
He cannot be God, but he must be God at the same time. That's like saying black is not white, but white must be white. Is there any wonder they call it faith? Is there any reason they call it a belief? Of course it's a mystery. This is stupid.
You know, I've read a lot of the Torah, and I've read a lot of the prophets, and I've read a lot of the Psalms. I have not come across a single mystery in the whole thing. It is very open, very explanatory. It repeats itself in multiple ways, so it teaches you. God is really good about this whole teaching thing and making you understand. He doesn't want it to be a mystery. He's like, here's it is. Here it is in a different perspective. Here's another way of saying the same thing. Here's a third way to say the same thing. Do you understand this yet? Not.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you that from my perspective, you are mostly right in that statement. I think there is one, and you'll when I share this with you, I think you'll concur. There's one distinction that I would make on that. Everything that's important for us to know, that is possible for us to know, regarding who Yahweh is, why he created the universe and conceived life, why he authored the Torah, how the covenant fits within his purpose, how we become part of the covenant, the benefits and the conditions of the covenant, and how Yahweh would go about facilitating our approach to him. Everything that's important for us to know, right down to the smallest details, absolutely explained in very clear, concise language, as you said, from hundreds and hundreds of different perspectives, all pointing at the same understanding. I think all that's true. I also think, and I've had this discussion with Roy here recently, when discussing the nature of Malak, the spiritual envoys and messengers of Yahweh, his implements. There is much that we do not understand. And that while it's always fun to push back the boundaries, I am of the conviction that there is much we cannot understand just because we have no frame of reference. But it's at this point is irrelevant to us. Let me give you an example. The Malak are capable of navigating 7 dimensions, 6, 5, 4, 3, and I don't know if they can navigate in 2, but they can certainly navigate and function in our 3-dimensional realm and also in Yahweh 7. Just as Mickey Mouse, if he were an actual living organism, and he's not, could have absolutely no way to envision anything of the 3-dimensional realm of Walt Disney. Might be able to model it mathematically, but in terms of understanding it, envision it, would not have the frame of reference to understand 3 dimensions. In 2 dimensions, you cannot understand 3. That's why we have so much difficulty as 3-dimensional constructs understanding time as a dimension. So an entity that can circumnavigate and can be effective and perceive and engage in 7 dimensions, as they engage in those 7 dimensions, is beyond our comprehension. We have no frame of reference.
But
so I think there are some things that we do not know.
Because we can't.
Right. And by the way, I think that there will be things for all eternity that we do not know. Now, I think right now you're right, Kirk. We do not know because we don't have the frame of reference now, and it's not in our interest. There'll be things we do not know in the future because the only way that eternity is going to be enjoyable, the only way we grow, is to continue to learn. And the only way to continue to learn, it means that there are things that at any one moment we do not know.
Nothing to explore if you've already seen it.
So with that one caveat, JB, are you comfortable with the kind of expanded definition of Yahweh's, what he has revealed to us?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd say that's also why, unlike most religious texts, the Torah, unlike the Quran or the Book of Enoch, for example, we have very little mention of the Malach. We're not told a whole lot of anything about them because they're not important and because we can't possibly comprehend most of what it's about.
Yeah, we're given information in terms of what the Malach do. We're told that they are they're messengers, they're envoys, they're representatives. We know that they're spiritual beings. We know that they are in a Sabbath, command and control regime. And we know that they do what Yahweh asked them to do. And we know that Satan and the fallen Malach are rejected Yahweh and his instructions. And yet we know that Yahweh created all of them for a particular purpose. We know a lot, but is the lot that we know, in fact, I'd say we know some. But my guess is, and maybe this is the difference between Roy, for example, who is just much smarter than I am in terms of dimensional understanding and the nature of energy versus matter and all that. I mean, he's just much smarter than I am. Maybe it's because his brain is either more receptive or better trained or more elastic than mine is in this regard. But I'm of the conviction that we know a little, and the little we know is fascinating, but there's a lot to learn.
Question.
Oh, yeah.
Question. If you had the capacity to know those things, wouldn't that change the equation on how he came to visit us?
Yeah, I think if we had the capacity to fully understand the Malach and understand the nature of
he doesn't need to come down to us.
Satan
We need to just elevate our brains to him. And that's
right, and what we're going to become. I think then we're put ourselves in a position I don't want to be in, which is a lot more is going to be expected of us. Right now, I think Yahweh is excited every time we figure something out. He expects very little of us and has a great deal of fun when we figure out the basics and grow in our understanding. But I think the whole equation changes. And that's why I think in eternity, we have to have his instruction incorporated into the very fabric of our lives, in our heart, which is where we make our decisions, because of the fact that our capacity is going to be so much greater. But I also think it's part of, when you're a baby, there's only so much you can understand. You can only explain so much to an infant. And as they grow, you can explain a little bit more and a little bit more. But until you really have a great understanding of language and have some discipline in your thinking and learn the nature of evidence and reason and exercising good judgment, there's only so much you can teach a baby. But as they grow, you can teach them more and more. I think that's our eternal relationship with Yahweh.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a parent relationship. I mentioned in the chat earlier, the other day, Delynn took her first 5 steps. She walked for the first time. We got excited. If your 30-year-old kid takes 5 steps, you don't get excited.
No.
Yeah, you should be. Come on.
Yes.
But your baby does it. That's an exciting moment. That's what Yahweh's protecting us. We find one of these old nuances in His Word right now. He gets excited. Once we're in eternity, He's going to expect us to know that part already. It's like, oh, look, I found this. He's going to be like, well, duh, I told you that 6 years ago.
And some of the reasons are, one is we want to uplift our children. We want to walk with our children. We want our children to be able to go off and explore and to discover and be anything they can be. Walking facilitates all those things. That's why Yahweh encourages us to walk with him. Now, this person goes on to say, this makes the truth and reality of the gospel. Yahweh doesn't have a gospel. All the more majestic and mysterious. Again, because what they're saying is nonsense, they have to present it as mysterious. This is a majestic mystery. Yeah. Why would this one who needed nothing, who had a perfect fellowship with the Father and the Spirit, submit himself to utter humiliation, even to the point of being forsaken by his Father? Now, might I point out something? That Yosha does not exist apart from the Father. Yosha is part of the Father, set apart from him, diminished into human form. Without Yahweh, there is no Yosha. And I've used this term, and it sounds derogatory, but it's not meant to be so. Yosha to Yahweh is less than a toenail clipping to the individual from whom it came. If you're looking at Yosha as this person is focused on, your focus is entirely misguided, misdirected. And Yosha himself said that, but no one seems to be able to listen in Christianity. And by the way, Yahweh, who is the only one that matters, needed something. God cannot be infinite unless he grows. The definition of identity. It has to always increase. And the only way for God to grow is through relationships. That's it. No other way. The benefit of children in a family and enjoying what as you and Patty, JB, experienced when your daughter walked. You grew. Your family grew. Mm-hmm. It was a great celebration. It added to who you are. And Yahweh needed that. And I'm here to tell you that if God didn't need that, we'd be in a really bad way. Because then we would be begging him not to give up on us. But the fact that he gained something out of the relationship, we don't have to be worried about it. It's in his interest to nurture the relationship because he gained something from it. That puts us in a much more relaxed and comfortable position relative to Yahweh. So he needed something. And you can't say that Yosha was in perfect fellowship with the Yahweh because when Yosha isn't set apart and diminished as a corporeal manifestation of Yahweh, they aren't in fellowship. They're one and the same. Right. He is Yahweh. Submit himself to utter humiliation, even to the point of being forsaken by his Father. Yosha wasn't forsaken by the Father. Forsaken by the set-apart Spirit. Body of Yosha and the soul of Yosha witnessed the set-apart Spirit departing. And the reason that had to happen is because God cannot die. Sorry, Christian. God cannot die. And God can't go to this place of separation from God. No. So the set-apart Spirit had to leave Yosha. And, you know, it was when... It can't be everywhere. Right. That's correct. And it also tells you that that's why Yosha was a human, up until the point that the set-apart Spirit came upon him. And when the set-apart Spirit came upon him in the Jordan River, when Yahuwah, the immerser, was the witness to this, citing the passage out of Yashayah to commemorate the event. And Yahweh himself spoke and said, "This is my son, who I am well pleased." That is when the set-apart Spirit came upon him, and it's the set-apart Spirit that made him divine. It's the set-apart Spirit that comes upon us that makes us divine. It's the set-apart Spirit that left so that the soul of Yosha could go into matzah, and so that the body of the Passover lamb could die. That is what occurred. It's not a mystery. It's quite easy to understand, and it's clearly stated.
And it's explained in clear detail down to the minutest of detail if you know where to look.
Yeah, now they say the best answer. Yeah, the best answer this idiot wrote, we have from Scripture. Does Yahweh have Scripture?
No, sir. That's His Word.
Scripture is a...
in the sense that it's something that's written down.
Yeah. Scripture is a transliteration of a Latin word, and it's a Latin word for writing.
Oh.
So why would we use a transliteration of a Latin word when Yahweh communicated to us using Hebrew? So what does Yahweh have? He has His Debar.
Debar.
His word. So if you're going to use a foreign word and you're going to transliterate a foreign word to describe where you should look, it would be Yahweh's Debar, not Scripture. Scripture is a purely...
Or better yet, just communicate to people in English and say Yahweh's writing, Yahweh's words.
What if you were to pick a human civilization, a culture, that was Yahweh's least favorite, the civilization and culture that Yahweh said was inflicted the greatest harm to humankind, who would it be?
Roman Catholicism.
Right. Imperial Rome followed by Roman Catholicism.
It's Roman.
Latin, which is the basis of Scripture. What language is that?
That's Roman.
Whose language was that? Right.
Roman.
So do you think that Yahweh is going to choose the language of man's greatest adversary to describe His word? That's just like asking the question, do you think that Yahweh is going to take Babel, which is the whore of Babylon, and going to take Babel to become the title of his testimony, becoming Bible? Hardly.
Yeah, He's a multicultural God.
Oh, yeah, right.
He's all about inclusion.
Yeah, the exact antithesis of that. Simply because, he says, the answer is in Scripture, simply because He loved us. You know, I've read a lot of the Torah, the prophets and Psalms. And occasionally I do see love. But you know what I find most of all? God despises us. And particularly since us here is the religious, He hates the religious. Despises the religious.
I was going to say, if you put humankind as a whole, it ain't even a bell curve. By and large, the number of people Yahweh likes and the number of people Yahweh either doesn't know or hates, it's a very small fraction that He loves.
Yeah,
what did he say to
doesn't know and hates.
Doesn't
know. You can't love somebody you don't know. Yeah. But if you take doesn't know and hates, and you compared it to knows and loves, it's 1,000,000 to 1.
Which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The number of people who will accept the covenant versus those who will walk away from it. 1 in a million again.
1,000,000 to 1. 1,000,000 to 1. See, He loves us, and so determined to do what we were unable to do, to break the chains of our sin. It doesn't talk about sin. It talks about what is wrong, in order that we might cheerfully serve and worship Him for eternity. You know, the only thing about worse than worshiping Him on Sunday mornings is the idea of spending your eternity worshiping Him.
Yeah. If that's what eternity's like, count me out.
Count me out. I'm not going there. You know, if the Torah were law, and it's not, it's teaching. If Yahweh told us to obey as opposed to listen. If Yahweh was the Lord instead of Father. If He wanted to be worshipped instead of enjoyed. I wouldn't want to be in heaven. I would have no part of the covenant. Count me out. I'd rather, you can just let me live my life.
At that point, if heaven or hell are my only option, I'm screwed either way. I'm just going to enjoy this life.
Right. Correct.
Because that heaven would be hell to me.
That heaven would be hell. That would be hell to anyone. But it's certainly hell to us. So then this goes on to say, the lesson of the incarnation is that only thy triune God, triune, where does the Trinity come from?
Babylon. Nimrod again.
Yeah, Nimrod again. It's the Son, the Mother of God, Queen in heaven, and Baal, the Lord. Yeah. That's where and the Trinity is permeated every pagan religion. And it was adopted wholesale into Christianity. There is no reference whatsoever to a Trinity anywhere in God's Word. Yahweh says,
God
I am
can't be one if there's a Trinity.
Ishad, it means one. No. There aren't three personas.
He uses that multiple times.
He is one.
Over and over.
Could save us from ourselves. Man brought about his own ruin and the ruin of all creation. This ruin was so deep and devastating, there's no way for human beings to solve the problems that they had created. Only God could do that. He had to do that, not by a simple wave of the hand, if they only knew how important the hand was, or a mere declaration. Too bad they don't know how important the declaration is. He had to do it by becoming one of us, even while he remained who he is. You know, if a seven-dimensional creature, entity, Yahweh, capable of creating the entire universe without diminishing himself, was capable into fitting entirely into a baby and then a man, there is something entirely wrong with that equation. That is not rational. Not even remotely rational. It would be like an infinitely larger Walt Disney becoming Minnie Mouse, and the entirety of Walt Disney becoming Minnie Mouse. Mm-hmm. Not
mathematically impossible.
Yeah, and rationally impossible. Anyway, so I would love to see.
That's one of the mysteries of religion.
All of them declared guilty of doing precisely what he has done, and he and those who promoted him to spend their eternity in hell separated from God for what they have said. Now, there's a couple other things in the news I want to cover, and then we'll get to the passage. A liberal coalition yesterday started a campaign to label social conservative organizations that oppose transgender rights as hate groups, ratcheting up the antagonism between opposing sides in one of America's most contentious debates. It is amazing today that we are reaching the point where if you proclaim anything that is inconsistent with multiculturalism, political correctness, and secular humanism, socialist secular humanism, that your voice is no longer to be heard, that it must be silenced. It is also interesting that those that wish to label others as haters are the most hateful.
Yeah, they come after you.
Of course.
The Eliminate Hate campaign is hatefully seeking to draw attention to groups it sees as extreme and hateful against lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. You know, I am opposed to the promotion of homosexuality as normal. I am not opposed to people who are homosexual. I don't care if they're homosexual or not. I don't care if somebody screwed up and decides they want to be transgender. That's their choice. Do not care. I don't care what bathroom they use. They're irrelevant to me. But the promotion of abnormal as not only normal but superior is offensive to me. And worse is when those who wish to promote abnormal seek to silence those who wish to say, wait a minute, what you're saying is ridiculous. And then to label those that they hate as haters.
Well, how do you get around free speech?
They don't want free speech.
Well, I know they don't want it, but I mean, how can you even have laws like that?
Well, we've started.
George Orwell put it great. Freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4. From that, all other freedom flows. And they've made it where we cannot say 2 + 2 = 4. Because if 2 + 2 = 4, that's offensive to this group, so now 2 + 2 can't equal 4.
Right. Yeah, it's you know, there's a line when we were trying to deal with Iraq, and they were trying to form a constitution, and those in America said, why don't we just give them ours? We're not using it anyway. So if you're working out this is in violation of the Constitution, give it up.
Like,
yeah, give it up.
You
heard, speaking of no rights and you can't say what you want to say, a university student in Pakistan was murdered yesterday because he was accused of blasphemy against Islam. Now, I don't even know how you blaspheme Islam. I mean, I really don't. Allah was modeled after Satan. Muhammad was a terrorist. He was a pedophile. He was a rapist. He actually promoted those things. He was a thief. He acknowledged that he was a liar. How do you?
I guess you can blaspheme it by saying he was monogamous.
Yeah, I guess so.
You impugn his character by suggesting he was a good person.
Yeah,
he was a nice guy. He watered his plants every day.
Reports suggest that the two young men were accused of posting offensive content on Facebook. Offensive. Yeah, Muhammad was a terrorist. It's true. Muhammad was a pedophile. It's true. Muhammad was a racist. Muhammad was a rapist. Muhammad was a mass murderer. Allah was modeled after not only Muhammad and was his alter ego, but is the spitting image of Satan.
You know, here's an idea. If you're going to be offended about worshiping a guy who's called a pedophile, how about don't worship a guy who is a pedophile?
There you go. There you go. Christians say
then you ain't going to be offended.
Yeah, blasphemy is highly sensitive and incendiary issue in Pakistan. Blasphemy, Islam is so stupid that the fifth Quran says anybody that questions the Quran will reject Islam. And so it is questioning, questioning the Quran and questioning Islam is therefore ruled an offense punishable by death, because the moment people start to question the Quran, which is the dumbest book ever written, they'll cease to be a Muslim, and that means that both Satan and the warlords lose control over them. So blasphemy, which is to infer that Allah isn't really Satan, is an incendiary issue. Critics say blasphemy laws, which allow the death penalty in some cases, are often misused to oppress minorities. No. Stupid.
No, that's why they're there.
Isn't a highly sensitive.
It's why the law was created.
Pakistan. Right. It is an issue in Islam. Why don't you just say it? It's an issue in Islam because Islam is the dumbest religion man has ever conceived. And that's saying something when you consider Scientology and Mormonism. And the reason that it's deployed is to continue to keep everyone oppressed. There have been other cases where people were accused of it and have been killed by an angry crowd. The murdered student was identified as Marshall Khan, who studied journalism. He was beaten to death with planks. He was badly tortured after being shot at close range, and then he was beaten with sticks, bricks, and hands by an angry mob. That reminds me of, wasn't Rodney King that 25 years ago for the Rots riots was beaten by, he was a thug, and he was beaten by the cops. And there's video of the cops being belligerent and beating him up. And so the first thing that the African Americans did in the Watts area is they pulled another guy out of a white guy out of a truck that was just driving, minding his own business. They pulled him out and smashed his head into a brick. Yeah, Reginald Denny. That's it. Reginald Denny. And you say, all right, if you're that stupid, if your response is, you shouldn't have beaten my guy, so I'm going to show you by beating an innocent
a random
guy.
Person had nothing to do with the actual event.
Yeah. You questioned my religion, so I'm going to torture you. His father says there's no freedom of expression in the country. There's no freedom of expression in Islam. Hundreds of people were involved, the officers, hundreds. You know, jihadist organizations are gang mentality, the worst of human nature. The video footage is available online. The last thing I want to talk about is the Moab. Are you familiar with the Moab? It's not a place in the desert. You know what the Moab is?
Mother of all bombs.
There you go. Yeah, mother of all bombs. Yeah, that when Trump announced that it had been dropped, you know what his quote was? I told my military to drop it. I told my military to drop it. You know, kings had a military. Presidents do not have their own military. My military.
Oh,
this man is really, really off his rocker. Now, I'm going to tell you that if you look at what happened, what he did in Syria, you know, when Obama was going to bomb Syria, and I was doing the Shattering Mission, I had a conniption fit. I said, how could you be so insane? How could you bomb Damascus with the Russians there? How could you call for the killing of Assad when no matter what group replaces him, it will be infinitely worse, particularly after the lessons of Afghanistan and Libya and Iraq. How could you be that stupid? How could you risk World War III with Russia and China and bomb Iraq because some people were killed with poison gas? You can't be that stupid. And, you know, Russia outwitted him and kept him from doing it. But Trump didn't wait around. Trump went and condemned the Russians and bombed them. That makes Trump much more dangerous than Obama.
Oh, yeah. That was what I always said about Trump was, you know, that's the problem. You never know what he's going to do. And while that may have been entertaining and fun when he was running and you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth next, do you really want to give that guy the military? You know, as commander-in-chief, he can do a lot without any congressional oversight with the military.
The Moab was my military, and then he bombed the Syrian base, and has ratcheted up the rhetoric against Russia to the point where, I mean, if I were Russia, I'd just say F you.
What's funny is that if Obama had done any of this, the Republicans and the conservatives would have been condemning Obama. But because it's their guy now, they love it.
Rightfully so.
I can't stand the hypocrisy of the two-party system. Everything's okay as long as it's my guy. Clinton, you know, sexually harasses women, it's wrong. But Trump, it's okay.
I have seen now the testimony of Assad, the interview he did regarding these weapons. And, well, I do not know which side actually deployed them. I can tell you, looking at him, and I'm pretty good. I mean, I got really skilled at being able to look at people's tells and know when they're lying and when they're telling the truth. He did not order. That doesn't change the fact he is a scumbag. But I'm here to tell you that whoever replaces him will be infinitely worse. Infinitely worse.
Well,
he didn't order.
That's the
friend.
Yes. So I don't know who did what to whom there. And to tell you the truth, I don't care. I want to quarantine the area. I want to leave it. Let them kill each other if they wish to kill each other. It's not our affair. But
not our problem.
The fact of the matter is that to bomb them the way we did is either an episode of Wag the Dog, you know, when Clinton was suffering from all of the facts and evidence associated with doing a 21-year intern in the Oval Office and lying about it and perjuring himself. He attacked Kosovo, right?
Mm-hmm.
He started that war. It's called Wag the Dog. I want to have a diversion, a distraction. So it's either that, and he needed the diversion or distraction because of the fact that those accusing him of engaging with Russia to prevail in the election were getting too close to home, and he needed a distraction. Or Trump is more dangerous than Obama.
He's off his rocker.
And he has a God complex, just like Obama did. I hope I'm wrong about Donald Trump, but I am convinced at this point that Donald Trump is a clear and present danger. And that, well, I despised Hillary Clinton because of what she represented and the fact that she and her husband turned politics in America into a money-making machine for them. And I despised them for it. And I did not want them rewarded for it. The fact of the matter is that Trump is a much more dangerous alternative.
And I said it back when Clinton was running against Obama. The difference between Hillary Clinton, or the Clintons in general, and Obama is the Clintons are pragmatists. They're going to do whatever makes them look good, makes them money.
Right.
You know, you can predict what they're going to do. Obama was an idealist. You know, he had an ideology, and he didn't care what the effects of proceeding that were. And Trump's in that same category. He doesn't care what the effects of his actions are as long as they're moving toward whatever his goal is.
He's a megalomaniac. He has no restraints. He is a megalomaniac. Muhammad was a
reactionary.
Right. Yeah, a megalomaniac. And megalomania is an extraordinarily dangerous situation. All right, now I want to turn to the passage that explains what would and now has taken place on Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim, since we're in the middle of the celebration, and we're having to deal with the counterfeit of Easter. I'm going to turn to 2 Samuel. Listen to him, Samuel 7:12, 13, and 14. Indeed, when your days are complete, and you lie down. Now, this is Nathan speaking to Dode on behalf of Yahweh. So Nathan, which means gift, is quoting Yahweh. So this is actually being presented in first person, Yahweh speaking, even though the voice delivering it is Nathan, gift. Indeed, when your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will take a stand with your offspring, which to show the way shall come out from your physical being. I will establish accordingly his kingdom. Now, this is an interesting point of view because it says that Yahweh is going to take a stand. Yahweh himself is going to engage and to take a stand. He's going to do so with the descendant of Zerah of Dode. Now, is the
Yosha.
Right. Well, it is Yosha is the descendant of Dode.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't limit it to Yosha. And the reason I wouldn't limit it to Yosha is that Dode is the ultimate contributor to the covenant. No one better exemplifies the covenant than Dode does. He's the beloved of Yahweh, the beloved son of Yahweh. And it's his songs that explain how to observe the Torah such to understand and accept the terms and conditions of the covenant. So anyone who becomes part of the covenant is really a Zerah offspring of this relationship between Yahweh and Dode.
Okay, I see your point.
So I think it could be more. And by the way, when it says, and I will establish according to his kingdom, whose kingdom? Dode's kingdom? Yosha's kingdom. Because when Yosha was a direct descendant of Dode, he didn't have a kingdom, did he?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. And when this prophecy was being given to Dode, he was right near the end of his life and therefore his royal reign, not the beginning.
Right.
So it has to be speaking of his kingdom at a different time. And so I think it has to be directing our attention
So you're talking about,
to the millennial Shabbat.
Yeah.
The millennial Shabbat. And at that point, whose kingdom is it? Is it a celebration of the kingdom of Dode over Yehudah and Yisrael, or is it a celebration of Yosha as the king of Yisrael and Yehudah?
That's Dode, It's his kingdom. We're going to establish the old kingdom.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's more Dode's than Yosha's, personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Yahweh is coming back as Yosha. I think he's coming back as Yahweh.
Okay, so that destroys the Christian thing about, all heads will bow when he returns and and we'll all worship him, besides the fact that this couldn't be done, but still.
Yes, yeah.
He doesn't. He turns it over to Dode. He's there.
Right. And what that tells you is that Yahweh does not want to be a Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
What Yahweh, he created the universe to put us in charge, to empower us.
Play.
Yeah, to let us play. And so for this 1,000 years of where we remain on earth, he's going to work through Dode, his creation, because that is his preference. It speaks magnitudes about the nature of Yahweh and what he's offering. He shall build.
Yeah, it's kind of like a father who's built a business and then hands it over to his son. He's there to advise, and he's watching over, and he's there to help. But he takes pride and joy in watching the son take this business and make it his own.
In fact, truth be known, he created the business so he could do that very thing. In the case of Yahweh, he created the universe so that he could do that very thing, turn it over to us, his children.
You look at most business owners, that's what they did. That's why they built their business. It wasn't for them. Correct. It was to give their children this.
Right, exactly. Then it says, he shall build the family home for my name, and I will establish accordingly the throne of his kingdom forever and ever as a continuing witness. He shall build the family home. What if you were to render Be'eth as he shall build the temple? Then you'd have to ask yourself, did Dod build the temple?
No.
No.
No. In fact, he was specifically precluded from building it, wasn't he, by Yahweh?
Mm-hmm.
Did Yosha build the temple?
No.
No.
In fact, he didn't lay a single stone, and he predicted that shortly after his departure that it would be completely torn down. It was. Right. So neither built the temple. So the only way this makes sense is that he shall build Bana, Be'eth, the family home. It has to be, and he shall build the covenant.
Yeah.
The home for the covenant. And the home for the covenant is in Yahweh's name. It bears all of the children of the covenant. That family bears Yahweh's name. And so if you go to that point, I would say that both Dod and Yosha built the family for Yahweh's name.
Now, another meaning for Bana, though, is the structure built for occupation. You don't occupy a temple except temporarily. So a home you do.
Right. And one of the things that's really important about it, also, and Bana, by the way, is based on Ben. It's the feminine of Ben. You know, Ben is the Hebrew word for son or child,
Yeah,
and Bana is definitely the feminine of that. So it's a place for the son, right? Going to build a place for my son is the whole concept of the family home here. God does not need a home. We do. Now, what's interesting here is that had it been the temple, this would have been meaningless to 99.9999999% of the people on earth. The temple that Solomon actually built was torn down not long after he built it. Very few people had access to it, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then the rebuilt temple, the second temple, was torn down not long after it was built, and very few people had access to it. And no one for the last 2,000 years has had access to it, right? But we have access to the Be'eth of Yahweh, don't
Covenant.
Yes.
People always have, all going back all the way to Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moshe and the children of Israel. We have all had access to the Be'eth, the family home of Yahweh, all the way to us today. And so it's vastly more important that Dod and Yosha contributed to building and opening the doors to Yahweh's home. Now, when it says here, and I will establish his throne of his kingdom forever and ever as a continuing witness, this, I think, is only a reference to Dod. And why? Because I think it's God's mentality to make us as sons and daughters such that we sit on the throne right next to him. Yeah, that we become royalty. We are literally masters of the universe in the sense of all the positive connotations therein.
Well, if you become like him, what else can you conclude?
He's giving the universe to us. Therefore, the throne, the seat, the place of honor, the status of authority, the position where those are empowered or entitled to sit, which is what cachet means. That is not only part of his enduring kingdom, of his realm, that is what forever serves as an enduring witness, that we will have the seat of honor and be empowered and entitled to sit next to Yahweh. Very powerful when you actually think it through as to what these words mean. This goes on, and by the way, I think that explains that statement. Upon this rock I shall build my invitations to be called out and meet. He uses the same verb, bana, and I think that is what Yosha was saying when he was talking to Shimon Kefish. It's also interesting that Yahweh has chosen to use the seat of honor, the empowered position of Dod, to convey its implications as part of his eternal witness. This is addressing a time where the beloved Son and his Father will live together and ponder the meaning of life for all eternity. Now, the purpose of the covenant and its benefits, both for man and God, are simple and profound. I say simple, because who among us can't appreciate a father and son relationship? The covenant isn't any more complicated than family. This simple perspective presupposes a loving, nurturing, and uplifting relationship and obliterates any notion of God as a Lord who wants to be worshipped. Sorry, Christians. Just as the life of a father is enriched by children, likewise our Heavenly Father's existence is enriched by his children. I dare say, by considering what the covenant does for Yahweh, we can be more relaxed around him, knowing that it's in his interest, not just our own, to lavish benefits upon us. There is yet another profound, albeit related implication underscored by what God has to say next. The manner in which Yahweh would fulfill his promises and enable the benefit of the covenant served to model the nature of the covenant family. Our Heavenly Father set apart and then diminished an aspect of himself as a son, in conjunction with the set-apart Spirit, representing God's maternal nature, to make it possible for us to be part of his family. He used the family model to facilitate our participation in the family. He used a father-son relationship with Dode to make this point. Yet sadly, even though Christians constantly proclaim that their Jesus is the Son of God, not one of them can make this connection. And without this association, there is no understanding. Without understanding, there is no relationship with God. You're left with unfathomable mysteries. I would like now to turn to what I think is, I want to say without equivocation. What God said next is the single most influential statement in my life. I would say without equivocation, if it were not for this statement, I would not know Yahweh. You would not know me.
Yes,
whether or not some of you would have come across the means and the will to translate Yahweh's Torah and to figure this out, I would hope so, but we don't know that. What I do know is that without this next statement, I would not know Yahweh. I would not have written any of these books. We would not be doing this show. None of you would know who I am. And none of you would have read any of the things that ultimately led you to Yahweh. So I know it's the single most profound passage in my life. It may be in many of yours indirectly. Now, that said, I want to tell you that my most recent rendering of it is very different in many ways from what I previously had come to understand. And I'm also going to tell you that that I was, once I did it, I came to the place where I said, you know, there's two guys now that are doing a lot of translation. I'm going to send this off to them. Happens to be the two guys I'm sharing this program with, Kirk and JB. And I'm going to share with you what I've come up with thus far. And I'm hoping that you, in fact, I was encouraging you to play, to engage in constructive criticism, to figure out what I was coming up with, how it might be wrong. But the issue for me was there was no way whatsoever that Asher could be used at the beginning of the sentence and not be incorporated into the perversion that comes thereafter. And so as you guys looked at it and you said, hey, you can't begin the sentence with Asher. Asher is a conjunction. What do conjunctions do? They make relationships with that which came before and that which comes after.
Right.
And so
we all grew up on Schoolhouse Rocks. We know conjunction.
Yeah, what a conjunction is. And so the first part of this is profound in and of itself, and I want to leave it in and of itself because I think it is a simple statement that defines the nature of the covenant. And so there's this profound want to take the opening phrase here and consider it in and of itself, which is what I did. But when that's done and it's severed from what comes after no longer makes any sense. So it has to be all tied together. So here is 2 Samuel, listen to him, 7:14. I will actually and always be for him as a father, and he shall always and actually exist for me as a son, which through this association and to show the way, with him becoming burdened with perversity, I will resolve the dispute by judging him, accusing him, so as to manifest vindication through him with regard to and because of the rods, weapons, and staffs wielded by the rulers of nations to punish, kill, and control the races and tribes of mankind, and with regard to and because of the assault and plague that has fallen upon the children of Adam. When this is rendered that way, and now this is the collective wisdom of the three of us, I think, with each of these, that when these words are presented not just in accordance with their primary meaning, but completely. If there was ever a time when a word needs to be amplified and presented in its completeness as opposed to just an aspect of it, this is it. It becomes, whether you prefer, one of the most profound prophecies ever given, telling us specifically how Yahweh was going to fulfill his promise to resolve the issue of our perversity and our rebellion, and why he would do so. Or it becomes the most enlightening eyewitness account of the most important day in human history, once again explaining the who, what, and why of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. So let's look at these words again. Well, it begins by saying, I will actually and always be. Now, why did I just say instead of I will be? It's because it's Ani Haya. Ani means I am. Haya is the basis of Yahweh's name. It was written in the call imperfect. The call means a genuine and actual literal relationship is being established between the subject and the object. The subject here is Yahweh. The object is either Dod or Yosha, and in this case, it's both, but primarily Yosha. So that's actually. The imperfect means always, continually, without end, without interruption. I will actually and always be for him, Lahu, as a father, Abba. Means the relationship is going to be father. So why isn't that Christians don't understand that the entire story of the covenant is being facilitated by the very model of the covenant, Father-Son? That therefore, the Son did not come in his own name. He did not come to establish a new religion. He came to model what Yahweh was trying to facilitate, participation in the covenant, which is why the family home for my name precedes this. I will actually... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and when you look up Father, y'all all know this, but I mean, there's absolutely nowhere you can have a Lord or a King or anything of that kind. It's always the home, the guy who's holding up the tent pole. He's the upright one. He's the protector.
He's the one doing the work, not the one sitting back ordering others to do the work.
Supporting the household. He's the provider.
He's the benefactor.
How do you get anything else out of that?
He's the nurturer. He's the one that lifts up. You know, in fact, I spent a little bit of time here just talking about Ab. By using Ab, the Hebrew word for father, Yahweh is presenting himself as actually being Dod's father, prophetically as Yosha's father, and by implication as our father. He is therefore describing his relationship with Dod, with Yosha, and with us in familial terms, and thus is part of the covenant family. He did not call himself their Lord or their King. This means that Yahweh is presenting himself as accessible and approachable, as uplifting and nurturing, as caring and protective, as someone to listen to, be guided by, and to follow alongside in the same footsteps. To be a father, there must be a mother. For there to be a father and mother, there must be a child. And unto us a child was born, and for our benefit that son was given. There are two aspects of Ab that we ought not miss. Alphabetically, Ab is the first word in the first alphabet used by man, because it is comprised of the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, depicting a ram's head, and Bayeth, depicting a family home. Aleph and Bayeth is how we derive the word alphabet. We are saying father when we say alphabet. The Aleph, the ram's head, describes a leader and protector of the flock. It reveals that God wants to protect and lead us, walk with and engage with us, eat and live with us. He does not ask anything of us that he is unwilling to do himself. It is also symbolic of Yahweh, through Yosha, serving as the Pesach Passover lamb. The ram's head conveys the realization that Yahweh is manifesting part of himself as one of us to lead us to perfect pastures in his heavenly home. That is why the second letter, Bayeth, is drawn to depict a family home. This home has a solid foundation, two upright and protective walls, and a roof, revealing but one way inside. Well, I began to think of Ben, the next word. Mm-hmm. You know, in Ben, the sperm starts out at the bottom right and moves to the top left. Right. Where is the light coming into the home of the Bayeth, the home of the covenant?
Oh,
where is the light coming from?
Top left.
Absolutely. It was ingeniously drawn to show a sperm, taking root and growing in a home. And you'll notice the child is headed towards the light, in the direction of the opening of the roof of the home.
Wow, that's really good.
Isn't that really good?
I saw that. Right.
Okay. I stole it, so you ought to as well. It's his language. It's just that, the more you look at it, the more powerful it became. So I will actually be for him as a father, and he shall actually exist for me as a son. Then the next word is, which through this association and to show the way. I don't think there was ever a time when I've come to appreciate Asher more than this. Asher means because of a benefit to reveal the proper path to walk, to give life meaning, to reveal the relationship. So the father-son relationship is being shown, revealed to us, because it is the way that Yahweh is going to reveal the way, the proper path to give life meaning. It's going to be the way that he takes a stand regarding the correct way to live an upright life, to lead and to guide, to make an important connection. So you ought to, when you're looking at Yosha, what he's saying is, to understand what I'm going to do with Yosha, to resolve the problem of man's perversity, you need to understand the concept of a father-son relationship, both with Yosha and with Dode. With Yosha, I'm going to make it happen. With Dode, he's going to become the beneficiary. I want you to see both perspectives, because when you see that perspective, you'll understand how Yahweh used the diminished, set apart manifestation of Yosha and why he used it to accomplish this. So as a son, which, through this association and to show the way, with him becoming burdened with perversity. Allah is the word. This is a powerful term, because the primary meaning of Allah means to weight something down wrongly, to burden somebody with a distortion. If you pile lies on top of someone. Mm-hmm. So this does not say when he sins. Asher does not mean if, it does not mean when. It's a relational conjunction that speaks of tying two things together in a way that is beneficial and revealing. And what Yahweh says, it's not that he sins, because if he sins, he is no longer the perfect Passover lamb. If he sins, he is not being judged because of our failings, but because of his own.
Right.
So when you look at a law, what it is the burdening of someone with distortion, the weighting someone down with perversity. So to show the way, with him, and it's Ba-Awahu, with him becoming burdened with perversity, not with him sinning, with him becoming burdened with perversity, with him being weighted down with regard to distortions, I will resolve the dispute by judging him, accusing him so as to manifest vindication through him. This is Yaka. You guys probably know that the Hebrew word to judge him, Yahweh would use Shabbat. It's the basis of Mishpat. The judges were called Shabbat. Yeah, to Shabbat is to decide between right and wrong, to make an informed decision. It's Shabbat. Yahweh didn't use Shabbat. He didn't say, I'm going to judge him. He said, Yaka. Yaka means to resolve a dispute by analyzing, by presenting the evidence so that either an accusation or vindication can be announced. Yaka was used the first time by Jacob. And Jacob is having a conversation with, I think it's with Laban. And in this conversation, there is an accusation that has been leveled at Jacob. And so in Bereshit 31:36, Genesis 31:36, Jacob tells Laban to set all of the evidence out before the family so that they, Yaka, can decide, judging the facts for themselves. It is about resolving disputes, discriminating between right and wrong. Therefore, in this context, after burdening Yahusha with mankind's distortions and perversity, and in association with the Father, resolving the wrongs of his children through his Son, Yahweh is revealing Yaka-hu. I will present all of the evidence regarding what I am doing through him so that you can examine it and discern the means that I am going to use to resolve this dispute, thereby judging him, even accusing him, so that as a result I can manifest vindication through him. In Yaka, we come to see how God was able to justly resolve wrong and make us right. And written in the Hiphil stem and the perfect conjugation, we discover that the Father is causing the Son to engage in this manner as if the Son were the Father for a finite period of time. It's just stunningly profound.
Well, you can't have any God like that. There are no gods like that. There's nobody that would associate that concept with a God, a Lord.
Right.
It just it is contrary to everything everyone supposedly knows.
And yet it is the absolute, it's the absolute perfect plan. It's as astoundingly profound and perfect as it is wholly inconsistent with everything man has ever conceived and taught.
Yeah, he's going to present all the evidence too. I mean, that's
right. And yet,
Lords don't have to do that.
And all you have to do to understand Yaka in this context is look how it's used the first time in the Torah. And you're right there. That's all you have to do. So this says, I will resolve the dispute by judging him, accusing him so as to manifest vindication through him. Why? With regard to and because of. Now, this is the hardest word, I think, in the whole group to translate. And I think it's hard to translate because there is the tendency to take any one of its meanings. And it's rendered rod in 99% of English Bibles. You know, rod isn't the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, or 10th connotation. of this word, Shabbat. The primary connotation of Shabbat is nations, rulers, tribes, ethnic groups. That's the primary definition of it. And it speaks of, a rod that can be used to punish. It speaks of a weapon that can be used to kill, of a scepter that can be used to wield one's authority, and of an implement that is used to control slaves.
And I throw one extra
in this, right? So in this case, if we don't consider everything the word means, we have no hope of understanding why Yahweh chose it here. What were you going to ask, Kurt?
Well, I found one other where it's also a stick for writing, and the reason I thought that important because the world writes. I thought of Paul's poison pen.
Yeah.
You rule by what you write. I mean, the decrees and so forth, but also the church writings, the Talmud writings. You ruled all these people by these writings.
Yep. So I agree. So Yahweh is laying upon him, weighting him down with the perversions that include the rods, weapons, staffs, and writings wielded by the rulers of nations to punish, kill, control, and beguile the races and tribes. That's the full meaning of the word. That tells us exactly what Yahweh is talking about in terms of perversion. This is religious, political, and military perversion and corruption.
Yeah, that was one of those, when I read your translation, it struck me, it's just like, wow, that's so interesting because, when you read the English translation, okay, it's telling you a description of how this is being done. Well, how it's being done benefits us very little. Understanding why it's being done, that is a great benefit.
Right.
Yahweh gives consequences, but he tells us the reason for those consequences. And that is where the teaching moment is.
Right. Yeah, the teaching moment is the full definition of what Shabbat means. Yeah. And that it speaks of all these
why
things.
Why it's happening and what's happening.
Right. Man's means to control and beguile and to mislead other men. And then he says, and with regard to, this is of mankind, Isham, of human beings and institutions, and with regard to and because of the assault and plague that has fallen upon the children of Adam. These perversions is what destroys us. Now, we're going to continue to record. The show is no longer broadcasting, but I'd like for us to, if it's all right with you guys, to go ahead and finish this thought.
I'm good.
That Yahweh is saying here that these perversions that were weighting Yosha down so that he could present all the evidence so that we might make an informed decision about the means to vindication. That perversion was wielded through the rods, weapons, staffs, and writing implements wielded by rulers of nations to punish, kill, control, and beguile the races and tribes of mankind. And with regard to and because of the assault and the plague that has fallen. This is Naga, the trauma, the pestilence that has wounded, destroying through an infectious pandemic, the affliction and disease bringing a bothersome condition, even in the stumbling blocks, and a fungus upon the children of Adam.
Well, there's JB's point again. It's the same story told dramatically this way, this way, this way, this way. Still the plague of death and religions, government.
When it's according to God, he tells it to you in every way possible to make sure you understand it.
Yeah, you cannot miss it if you read it.
Yeah, 100% of the English translations, which either says, if he sins or when he sins, I will not spare the rod of men. Yeah. That 100% of them, which also ignore the importance of Asher as the link between the father and son relationship that makes this possible, that all of those Christian Bible renderings are false. And if that is what God said, then God's a phony, and that there is no means to resolve our corruptions. Because if he sins, or when he sins, then he's going to pay the price because of his own failures. He's no longer the perfect Passover lamb.
Yeah. He's useless at that point.
Right.
Well, not
useless,
but in that regard, and for that purpose, he's useless.
Right. And God did not punish the Son with the rod of men. Men pummeled the body of the Son with their weapons, with their rods, with their flagellums. But the punishment
that was the least of his punishment.
Right. Yeah, the punishment to resolve this perversion of humankind is the time in Sheol on Matzah to remove the fungus, which is so
beating and the whipping
Naga
compared to that any day.
Oh, yeah, that's why Naga speaks of fungus. This is what matzah is all about. Yeast is a fungus. It's to remove this fungus. Is why he was there on matzah. And we missed that.
A few years back, everyone was all obsessed with the Passion of the Christ. And, look at the horrible ordeal he endured. It stopped at of course, before it hit the worst part. What he went through after that made everything he went through physically pale in comparison.
The Pesach lamb has a singular purpose, which is to provide life to Yahweh's children as part of the covenant. Full stop. Life, eternal life, it can be a horrible thing unless you're perfected. And so Yahusha resolved that. He bore our perversions in Sheol on matzah to unyeast us, to remove the fungus of corruption and perversion from us, so that we were not only immortal but perfected and therefore could be adopted, bekurim, as firstborn children into Yahweh's covenant family. That is a profound truth that is totally destroyed by the mystery of the Babylonian Easter. One is truth.
The mystery is how you take this pagan stuff and try and relate it to Yahweh. That's a mystery.
Oh. Why would you do that? Why would you say such stupid stuff as was written in and Logos on their homepage? Why do that? Why piss off God? When the truth is so profound, when he did so much for us, and he asks so little of us, apart from listening to him, trying to understand what he's saying, acting upon his instructions, meeting him when he asks us to meet with him, accepting the terms and conditions of his covenant so he can lavish its benefits upon us. Worship him. To worship him and to bow down before him is not only is the antithesis of what he designed and what he wants, it perverts his whole purpose. It's such a crime to do these things, to not understand why the father-son relationship was used, to not understand the merits of Yahweh's means to vindicate us by himself enduring our perversity. It's just like a parent choosing to make a personal sacrifice for the well-being of their child, and then to have that child spit in their face. So in my view, that this thing fully translated, if indeed, and I'm open to somebody coming up with a better translation of this, but this, as it's presented now, may be the most important statement you can find in Yahweh's Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and it reads, "I will actually and always be for him," that's the Father, "and he shall always and actually exist for me as a son, which through this association and to show the way, with him becoming burdened with perversity, I will resolve the dispute by judging him, accusing him, so as to manifest vindication through him, with regard to the rods, weapons, staffs, and writing implements wielded by the rulers of nations to punish, kill, control, and influence them, especially the races and tribes of mankind, because of the assault and plague that has befallen the children of Adam." The who? The what?
It's powerful.
The why are the most important story ever told. All laid out right there for you. There is no mystery.
That's amazing.
Isn't that profound?
That's absolutely amazing.
It really is profound.
Powerful.
Every aspect of what you need to know about the covenant is told in those words. Yahweh revealing His truth as a gift Nathan to Dode, his beloved son. So I was awestruck by it. I know we're a long way from chapter 12. We're in chapter 8 now of observations, studying the influence of Sion, and we'll return to that. But sometimes you just come across things, and I don't have enough patience to say, I'm going to wait for a month before we deal with this. And I also wanted to deal with this because it is the perfect explanation of what Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim represent.
Yeah.
And therefore, a perfect contrast.
The timing.
Right. Perfect explanation of what we're celebrating now in Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. A perfect rebuttal to the Christian corruption of Easter. And a marvelous example of working together. In this particular case. Here now, on the passage that's more important to me than any other in the entirety of Yahweh's Word, we came to this understanding by working together, the three of us. That's marvelous.
I'm impressed with you two.
As am I.
I appreciate hanging out with you.
Yeah, as am I.
Thank you.
As am I. We talked about how there's a lot we understand, and it's a lot of fun to come to know and understand new things and to constantly grow. For example, here's the most important passage in my entire life, and my rendering of it is so much more profound than anything I've come up with before. That means that I'm growing, you're growing, we're growing, we're learning.
You've examined this how many times in the past, and you found different nuances every time.
Yeah, dozens.
That's the beauty of Scripture. You can delve into it time and time again. To the cut.
That's why you guys
Yahweh's Word. Always learning, always growing. I think that's the nature of eternity. Yeah, I think that's the nature of eternity. So are there things that we do not know? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, there's a lot more things that we can know, and there's even more things that we will know when we're empowered and enriched, ultimately, as a result of Shabbat, the promise of 7.
No, there's nothing of importance that we can't know.
No, the plan's there.
There's nothing we need to know. There's no answer to any question that we need resolved to engage, to know Yahweh, to gauge a relationship with Him, and to benefit from His covenant. There is absolutely nothing that is even difficult
that requires faith.
Nothing. There's no mystery. There's no requirement of faith. It's laid out time and time again from every possible perspective, over and over and over and over again. And promise is that as we become part of His family, that rather than getting down on our knees and mindlessly worshiping Him and doing nothing other than, oh boy, aren't you wonderful? Oh boy, I'm so grateful to you. Aren't you? Yeah. Okay, He's wonderful. He knows He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, He's great. He knows He's great.
Yeah.
But He is so wonderful and so great that what He's interested in is enabling us to be wonderful and great. He's interested in engaging in a long walk through the universe and a good discussion along the way with children that He can uplift, that He can teach, that He can enjoy and celebrate life with. That's what this is saying. And it's a marvelous story, and He is so much better than the religious gods are despicable.
Yeah.
And the real God is marvelous. That's why I said, when we had the individual that decided, no, I'm just going to pass on this. Okay. Okay.
That's their choice.
That's your choice. Go away. If somebody wants to
so
celebrate
you think about
Easter,
it like this.
Go ahead.
How many people are there in the world? Billions. How many people are you friends with? couple dozen at most.
Right. Yeah.
You know, each friendship makes you more. It grows you. You become greater with each friendship. But you are not diminished by the lack of friendship with all the others.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know them. You know, it doesn't affect me. But every new person I meet and come to know makes me better. But I'm not diminished by not knowing these people.
Yeah. Like I've been enriched this week by coming to know Danny.
Yeah, that was.
I like Danny. Danny strikes me as very similar to Larry.
Yeah.
And I love Larry, and I've come to really enjoy Danny. No nonsense, straight up. I was living in the world of Babylon, came to reject it, thought my way out of it, and with the help of others came to know Yahowah. And man, am I glad that I'm here. You know, it's just fun to have people like Danny become part of the marvelous.
That was really moving. You know, Terry read that the other night. We had Mary come over each night, and she read it to Mary. Mary was crying, and everybody was crying. I mean, it's just, wow. His story.
It is a great letter.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing story. Very powerful.
We're all better for Danny.
Oh, man, it's such a great story. It's such an amazing letter. And it's, to one degree or another, it's all of our stories. I don't think he would resent me saying this. You know, really the only difference between Danny and us is that with Danny, he can look at Dode and say, all right, Yahowah figured out how to resolve the issues of and overlook the issues of Dode because he came to appreciate the terms and conditions of the covenant and observed Yahowah's Torah. So he can do it with me too. The rest of us look and take great comfort in Dode and says, you know, this guy's even worse than I am. I'm not sure Danny can say that. Danny, I'm having fun now.
A kindred spirit.
Yeah. But hey, listen, if you're being associated with Dode, you're in good company.
That's pretty good kindred
spirit. So, yeah, you're not going to get mad at me, Danny, for associating with Dode. You're in good company. But, he's as close to kind of Dode's behavior transformed by Yahowah as you can be. That's part of the power of that letter. And the other part of the power of the letter is that he knew he was in Babylon. And he was in Babylon. You know, where is Iraq?
Yeah.
He was in Babylon. He knew he was in Babylon.
Yeah.
Not just mentally, he was physically there.
Yeah, and he knew he was being lied to.
Firsthand.
Yeah, he knew it was all BS. And then when he tried to figure out his way out, and they accused him of being crazy, he knew it was them that was crazy. And then when he found a King James Bible, he said, man, this doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't.
This is crazy, too.
And then he read it the second time, and he says, you know, the problem with this is Paul. Man, can you imagine being smart enough to figure that out on your own? Without any of these translations tools? I mean, I'm not. I wasn't.
No, that was...
And he figured that out on his own. Right, and then he goes to the Christian church, and he says, come on, can you guys answer some questions for me? And he said, they were all a bunch of wet lettuces. They hadn't even read the book. They were clueless. I mean, to figure that out? Oh, my goodness. And then, you know, he comes to get mad at God. He says, come on, you told me if I searched for you, I could find you. And here I've come to this realization that Paul, who claims to represent you, is full of shit. And so I'm going to tell you the truth, I'm angry at you. And he comes home. He goes on a Christian website. He's still pissed off. And he says to the Christian, oh, Paul is a liar. Come on, stop quoting him. And Larry and those that
Lisa
and Fred and others that I think it's actually Robin who uses the other name that was in his letter. Yeah, that find him there and start sharing Yahweh's words. And his first response is, "What is this shit?
Wait.
Hey, what is this shit?" And you know, and Larry, of all people, and you know, you're calling Yahweh's word shit. No, he wasn't really. what he's doing is saying, "Wow, this is so profoundly different than anything I've ever heard. Where did you get this stuff?" And they said, "Yeah, this happens to be God's testimony." And they said, "Whoa!" Immediately, it resonated. It made sense. And this is an extraordinary individual. And then to have him come out and to say, I understand why you had to preclude us associating with conspiracy and fake news. I understand we had to do that. He says, having grown up in the psyops and the fake news and the conspiracy of the British military, he says, I realized we had no longer we had no credibility. The truth wasn't even available.
I don't know if you read the chat log much, but Danny was in there tonight, and he was taking some conspiracy theory stuff to task. It was pretty interesting reading.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Danny, I've now seen him write 3 or 4 letters. Like he weighed in on this fellow Joshua, and his letters to Joshua are really stout. I mean, wow. Yeah. So I like the guy. He reminds me of Larry. He's no nonsense. Immediately understood his stuff resonates with him, and he's right in your face with it. I just like that, and I think it's also profound that it was Larry's sight and Larry and those whom Larry works with that found this fellow and reached out to him and helped bring him home. Larry's extraordinary.
It's pretty special.
God never overlook that. Yep.
No.
In fact, I am convinced. Maybe I'm wrong, but I am convinced that once Larry has made the transition through the having to give up cigarettes cold turkey, and he's been a chain smoker, and he gets those hips replaced, and he's out of the agony of all of that. Larry's booming voice, strong message will be right back with us in due time.
I hope so. I love having Larry on here, and his perspective on the Torah is always great.
Absolutely.
You did mention Lisa. Lisa's also gone through a tough time. A lot of things. I'm sure that many of you have seen, but a lot of rough stuff is happening, and she's really an extraordinary individual, a marvelously fun, entertaining, brilliant, take no prisoners kind of a person who I think has now the greatest ability of any of us to find details that are just fascinating to help us obtain even greater perspective on Yahweh's nature and story.
She does consume books. I mean, I like to read, but she's
like one of the most recent where she figured out the wild ass and how the wild ass is different than all of the other terms that Yahweh uses for donkey and ass, and how the onger was, which he calls, the wild asses of men, speaking of Muslims, that it was native to Arabia, that it could never be domesticated, it could never be used. This was a vicious, mean-spirited animal with a horrible attitude that had no value whatsoever, and that was this.
Oh, Jack, can you think of a better metaphor?
Native to Arabia.
Good, ain't
he? He is good, man. He is good. But you don't know it until you find it.
No one better with a metaphor than Yahweh.
Oh, we didn't know that.
Her study of the acacia tree and the acacia ant as the living embodiment of Yahweh's metaphor of the ant. Right, and the nature of the acacia and the symbiotic relationship between the two. And we've known for a long time that, of course, the Hebrew word Allah means oak, and why these oak groves are symbolic of Baal and therefore of Satan. But just a lot of marvelous insights that she's come up with. There are some personal pains. And this is one of the things that's interesting about Yahweh. Yahweh says that his malach are available to us, and his words are available to us, and he himself is available to us as it relates to our eternity, the part of us that matters. Our ability to come to know him, our ability to grow with him and enjoy his company, and to be with him for all time. And that's the part where Yahweh engages to protect us, to nurture us, to lift us up, to care for us, and where he takes an active role in our lives as father and spiritual mother. But Yahweh never did say that your mortal earthly existence would be without pain, without trouble. And if it were...
Well, then you're micromanaging again, aren't you?
Well, yeah, again, it's not only micromanaging, but what's the purpose of it? How do you grow?
Yeah.
How do you get the sense of having overcome? How do you get the confidence as you can
a lot of the
grow and
struggles we go through on earth are the consequences of the choices we make. And
of course.
What father is going to get involved and interfere in every consequence? Sometimes you have to let your kids live with the consequences of their choice.
And sometimes we make
the
good
only way they're
decisions
going to grow.
But sometimes we make good decisions and bad people
bad things happen.
Bad things happen. Yes. But that's the very nature of the things that Yahweh is preserving us from ultimately. And so while we humans are prone to disappoint and injure our fellow humans, is what Yahweh just said here in 2 Samuel 7:14, Yahweh will never disappoint. Yeah, he's always reliable, always loving, always dependable as it relates to his children. And so, it's like so many people say, I'm celebrating Pesach alone. Normally I do. This year I've had my son here with me. But you're never alone. You're never alone. I never felt like I was alone.
The whole idea of Pesach is to get together with Yahweh. So
That's
obviously
exactly
you're not alone if you're with Yahweh.
Correct.
And you go through the door alone. You have to go by
company.
yourself to see Yahweh through the door.
Great conversationalist.
So that's okay. One by one, individual.
Yes. Fun to be around.
Yeah, I was fortunate this year. I had my wife, my daughter.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a couple of people who live in the area who are covenant members who came to join us. We had a nice, good time. We had a party, but if it was me living in an apartment by myself and it was just me sitting there with some lamb, matzah, and Yahweh, I'm good to go.
Good time.
That's a crowd.
Good time, good company.
Yeah, my little apartment, if I was in that hypothetical situation, is already way too small for Yahweh to fit in, so only a part of him is going to be there.
Yeah, and to a large degree, too, that when we celebrate these days and when we celebrate his testimony, we celebrate this understanding, we do so as a family. Yeah, even when we're with Yahweh, we are with one another. Yeah, this relationship is marvelous. It's I don't have to be in outside of Dallas or in Northern California and enjoy your company.
Well, I don't know if you saw some of the pictures Frank sent out where they literally had people Skyping in. So they had video up, and they were sitting there, a group of them there, and some people on camera, and they were all able to get. That's one of the best things about the age in which we live is, while we can be separated around the world, we can easily get together and communicate too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the internet is both good and bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We can
more
use
bad
it as
than
tools.
good, but the good is more beneficial.
It's great. Yeah, absolutely. This program is brought to those who are interested in listening via the internet.
If it weren't for the internet, the three of us wouldn't know each other at all.
No.
That is correct. We would not. And Danny would not be part of Yahweh's family. He's in Germany. So that's just the case. Hendrik is in England when he listens to the program. Our good friend and my close brother Dode Ben Yahweh down there in New Zealand. He's in New Zealand, and our good friend Roy is in Australia.
Yeah.
And we're, Larry's in Jacksonville. I'm right now in Ohio. Kirk, you're in Northern California. You're in Texas.
California.
Yeah, we couldn't be more spread out.
Dr. Jeff down in Phoenix.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff down in Phoenix. Frank up there in Washington State. Yeah. So we're all over the place. We're all over the place. And yet we're all together.
Terrific.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, fellas. Thanks for putting up with my fascination. I know I get overly fixated on stuff. Get overly excited about stuff.
I was glad you decided to discuss
I think you can get overly fixated on
because it was fresh on my mind, and I was just, I was hoping you would discuss this instead of going back. I loved what we were talking about with Zion, but I was really hoping we discussed the Samuel stuff.
Yeah, it's so pertinent to the celebration of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and it's such a marvelous rebuttal to the Christian corruption of Easter.
Yes, sir.
You know, and it's another example of if you really take your time and carefully and completely, accurately and comprehensively translate Yahweh's testimony, and we have to translate because we just don't think in Paleo-Hebrew, so we have to render it in words that we understand. Yeah, one day we will, but these words have a broad spectrum of meanings, and we do ourselves an injustice. We shortchange ourselves when we choose only one aspect of it. It's like saying changing snow to white. Okay, it is white. Changing snow to cold.
Snow is white.
Okay, it's cold. Changing snow to water. Okay, it is comprised of water. Changing snow to wet or to frozen. Okay, all of those are aspects of it. But unless you convey all of those aspects, you're not likely to understand it. So some of these words have lots of implications.
It takes a lot of words to explain it.
Right. If they,
That's the nature of our language. That's many words.
Right. So, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to pretend that we're smarter than God and say, he used this word, but I think only this
kind of
aspect that matters
applies. Yeah, no.
I think what God really meant to say was, I'm not that confident about anything I have to say.
Yeah, as I finally got through this passage, the thing that struck me the most was you can't translate Yahweh's word unless you know Yahweh. Unless you have some idea of who he is and what he's offering and how he goes about making that possible, then your hope of rendering what he said, forget it. Particularly on something that is as insightful and profound as this. I mean, there's some things that you don't need to know Yahweh, and this is what the words mean. But this is profound. This is really a complex prophecy and eyewitness account, explaining the who, what, the why of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and how of it. And so you really do have to know what's going to happen, why it happened, to, I think, properly render this. But that's okay.
I don't know any other group could even come up with that. I mean, obviously, Christianity couldn't do that. They ain't got a clue.
No.
Not a clue. It's still in the profound mysteries of the awe-inspiring and worshipful Jesus.
We don't understand this, so that's just that this is God.
Yeah. We can't understand it is proof that God is marvelous. Yeah.
He's so marvelous, he can't explain this.
Yeah.
That's not great. He can't explain this to us.
We should worship him because we can't understand what he's saying. That's why we should worship him.
Well, you know what? I can't understand mushmouth, so should I go ahead and start worshiping mushmouth?
You should. I listen to Sesame Street because I have a little granddaughter, and I can't understand because their way they talk is really hard to understand. So I guess I should be worshiping Elmo.
Well, you'd be in a large company of a number of children.
Okay, well, I'm going to pass on that. And, it's also so amazing in this particular statement, which is focused on the work that Yahweh is going to do, or Yahweh is going to do through Yahweh. The I throughout this isn't Yahweh, it's Yahweh.
Yeah.
So even in the most profound statement of the purpose and consequence of Yahweh, the speaker is still Yahweh. It's Yahweh, the one that's doing it. And he even used the hiffle stem.
He's the one that matters.
Right. The hiffle stem says the subject is the one that causes the object to engage in this way, and that the object engages such that the object becomes a secondary subject. That's just saying that Yahweh has done this such that Yosha will endure it, but Yosha is going to endure it as if he were Yahweh.
Yahweh.
That's just so profound.
There's nothing in English that can convey that.
No.
That's one of those where you do, people talk about, I don't want to have time to learn Hebrew. Yeah, that's one of those areas where you do really have to learn a bit of Hebrew to really get and understand, because there's nothing in English that conveys that kind of concept.
Right. And the second, when he's getting slathered with the man's perversion, it was written in the perfect, which means, this is only going to happen for a period of time.
One and done.
This is limited. It's
one and done here. One and done here. This is not going to be an ongoing deal here. It's going to be one and done. Great stuff. He's just such a great communicator. He's really pretty likable, entertaining. Heck of a teacher. Yeah. I really like him. All right, fellas.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy I could spend eternity with.
Yeah, but isn't it fun to be able to refer to God in those terms and knowing that he's saying, hey, I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah.
That was the whole idea. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being with any other type of God or any other.
No, I couldn't either.
It wouldn't be God.
No. Yeah. We can recognize, okay, he's smarter than we are, okay, he's more powerful than we are, okay, he's the creator of the universe, the one who conceived life, the author of the Torah. But that's not how he wants us to relate to him.
No, and then he comes over and says, can you do this, please?
Yeah, and then he says, I want you to sit right beside me. I've got a place of honor to empower you. Yeah, I want you to let's do this
sit over
together.
here next to me.
Wow. Yeah, that's the things I want to show you.
Who, me?
Who, me?
You can't.
Who, me?
You mean him. Yeah.
Isn't that kind of the exact response most all of his prophets had? Who, me?
Who, me? Yeah,
you want me to do what?
Oh. Yeah, it's just like when he says, sit down beside me, my first response is, oh, come on, there's so many other people more deserving than me. I'm just happy to stand in the back of the room and be a witness to all of this. He said, oh, no, it's a big seat. You're all welcome to sit on it. Come on. Don't be uncomfortable.
Thanks,
I want you
Dad.
here. Yeah, okay, Dad. You sure? Yeah.
Well, you think about it, that's like one of the only relationships where you could feel that comfortable. A teacher singles you out first in class. You feel nervous. Even if you know the answer, you feel nervous. Your dad points to you first and says, what do you think about this? You're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
I got this.
Absolutely. I got this, yeah. I'm good with this. I'm comfortable with this. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad, for pulling out the seat. Oh, my. All right, fellas.
Okay.
Happy
rest of the month.
I don't know what you guys celebrate. I started on Tuesday night, so I'm halfway, my halfway point now in the celebration of Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim. So this program has been empowered by Matzah. Brought to you by the nature of
the letter M.
Actually, I think we're about to go some of that with dinner.
The letter M. Well, on the East Coast, we've long had dinner. All right. Well, good night. It's been fun.
I usually don't eat till
Good
after
evening.
the show.
Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Talk to you guys next week.
Talk to you, JB.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later.